So the afternoon game on Saturday is going to be Clemson at Texas. Now, this is the biggest spread of the weekend. Clemson at Texas. Dabo, in his 7th playoff appearance with Clemson, goes to face Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. And Texas is 11.5-point favorites. That is a lot. That is a lot for a team that, let's face it, has not played great offensively down the stretch. Now, let's get into this one. The most underrated unit maybe in America, I think you can make the argument it's the Texas defense. The Texas defense right now is number 1 in the country in yards per play defense and number 2 in scoring defense. So I start this entire analysis with this. I sit down, I look at this game, and I think to myself, can Clemson score over 20 points? The two best defenses, I would argue, that they saw all year were Georgia week 1, they scored 3, and South Carolina here late in the season, and they scored 14. So Texas, you could make an argument, has a better defense than either of those teams. And respectively, Clemson scored 3 and then 14. So this question of can Clemson score 20? I believe that the answer is no. So if you start with that premise, you immediately have to go to the Texas offense, and you have to wonder to yourself, what's Texas offense going to do in this game? Because as I said at the outset, it has not been a real fireworks show for the Longhorns offensively in the back half of the year. Think about some of these games that they've put up, and it's just Ewers hasn't looked all that healthy as he's been battling that ankle injury. His lack of mobility affects them. They've got to constantly scheme guys open, and sometimes that doesn't work. So you've seen low output games for the Texas offense. So now the question becomes will Texas score 20 points? That's the bigger question. I love the quarterback matchup in this one, by the way. These two guys, Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers, they played against each other in high school in the state championship game. Klubnik is going back to Austin. He played at Westlake High School, so he returns home. There's a lot of great backstories. Klubnik now and this Clemson offense is going to go up against one of the better secondaries in the country. This is why I don't believe Clemson is going to all of a sudden turn on this offensive firepower that we haven't really seen all year, in particular in games against quality defense. Texas has the number 1 pass defense in America. They've done that with the Thorpe Award winner, Jahdae Barron. They've got an All-American safety, Michael Taff. By the way, he's Klubnik's high school teammate. They've got a former teammate from Clemson and the other safety, Andrew Makuba. He played with Klubnik at Clemson last year and transferred over to Texas. So here he is facing his former team. This is a defense that probably plays really well in this game. They're at home. They have the benefit of crowd noise. This is not an offense that I think is going to threaten them. So low scoring from Clemson on the offensive side. And now we get to what does Quinn Ewers in Texas and Steve Sarkisian give us on the offensive side? Ewers is not playing very well. The back half of the year, I have felt on a number of different occasions that I actually feel like Texas's offense would be better with Arch Manning. I know that that's hyperbolic. I candidly hate saying that, but I do think it's the case. And it's the case because when Ewers doesn't have mobility, and he hasn't had it with the lack of mobility in terms of that ankle injury, he can't scamper for first downs. And when you can't move the chains with your legs as a quarterback, even just a couple of times, then the premium on your ability to be a great passer goes way up. You have to throw guys open. You've got to be dynamic as a passer because that's all you can lean on. You see, against Michigan early in the year, Quinn had his legs under him. So there was a couple of times early in that game on third downs that he ran for first downs, moved the chains with his legs. And that totally changed the dynamic of how Michigan had to call their defense and who was open and then what they could do from a schematic standpoint. Late in the year, he hasn't had that. So Georgia sacks him 6 times, and all the pressure in the world falls on Steve Sarkisian to scheme somebody open. Because one thing that I don't see from Quinn Ewers, and this is just like an honest evaluation, he doesn't throw guys open a lot. And the reason is that he doesn't change the pace on his throws. So normally when you hear me talk about quarterbacks, you'll hear me say that you've got to be able to kind of change your pitch, change your pace. You've got to have the ability to drive the ball into tight windows, in particular in intermediate zones. You've got to have the ability to throw with touch both down the middle of the field and on the outside. And then you've got to have the ability to layer the football where you're throwing over defenders and in front of other defenders. That layered ball is not a touch throw, but it's not a drive throw either. So if you can do that and you can change speeds, that makes you a great passer. It also allows you to throw guys open because you can attack areas of coverage that guys that can't change speed can't attack. Well, Ewers throws primarily with touch. He is a float thrower. He doesn't often drive the football unless it's a very short route, like a slant or something along those lines. When he's throwing the football down the field or outside of the numbers, generally speaking, because again, I'm sure you can show me a clip, and I've seen a clip here and there of him driving the ball, but generally speaking, he throws with touch. He floats the ball. And because of that, there is an immense amount of pressure on Steve Sarkisian to scheme guys open. We've seen that against Georgia, both times that they've played him. And Georgia is fast enough and well-coached enough to take that away. I think Sark's going to have his cape on. Now, what do we see from Sark, generally speaking, after a long layoff? Great game plans. And so I fully expect him to have something cooked up for this Clemson defense that is going to allow Quinn Ewers to succeed. So do I think Texas can get to 20 points? Yes, I do think that they can get to 20 points. Kelvin Banks, who won the Outland Trophy, his availability is up in the air. But again, to me, it's not necessarily about the way the offensive line plays as much as it is about the way that Quinn Ewers plays. And I know those two things are tied together, yes, but the ability of Sark to scheme guys open, I think, is paramount. Sark is having right now, to do a lot. A lot is on his plate. They were held to 20 points or less for their last 7 games. And again, I'll just say this. I do think Quinn's going to have a short leash. I think of Tua with Jalen Hurts. I think of this is it. You've got to win this game to move on. There's no other game after this. So how quick is the leash if Quinn is not playing well? If he's not seeing it like that first outing against Georgia, will we see Arch Manning? Possibly. And I actually think they're a more dynamic offense. He changes pace on his throws better than Quinn does, and he's much more elusive and a threat with his legs than Quinn. And that's obvious because now they have even short yardage situations where they'll bring him in. I like Texas to win this game. Texas, I think, is going to get close to 30 points. I think they score 27. Clemson does not score 20 points. I think they score 17. Thus, I actually think covering the 11.5 is the way I'm going to go with Clemson. I think I'm going to take the points with Clemson just because of this offense and the lack of production from Texas down the back half of the year. But again, the Texas defense is going to win this game for them. 27-17. Texas wins this game, and I'm taking the points for Clemson. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.